Yeah.
And we're recording now. Hello and welcome to Everyday People, Aditya Agrawal. Thank you so much for sitting down with me. The first question I always ask to every guest: Who are you? What do you do? And what is your current side project?
Hey Weber, pleasure to be here. I think thanks for inviting me. My name is Aditya Agrawal. I'm based out of Bangalore as of now. So I currently am working for a startup. I
Mm-hmm.
work in the customer success team. Right. Again, it's mostly related to B2B SaaS space.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, been in this industry for now close to 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And in terms of side project, I think what I would like to maybe specifically mention for this podcast is I'm someone who's very passionate about sports,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So similar to you, but not at the same consistency at the same level. I've let's say briefly done a podcast as well. What I let's say still continue to do here and there is write. I have my own blog website, you can call it,
Yep.
which I where I used to do it more frequently, but now I do it every now here and then.
Awesome. We'll talk about all of these things. First, let me talk to you about your work. So,
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with customer success teams. Personally am a technical writer. So, I've worked with
Okay.
CS people as my stakeholders, often asking them what they need for documentation. For somebody who doesn't know what customer success is, and somebody who's listening, help them understand like what is it that you exactly do on a day to day basis.
I think when I look at B2B space, let's say when you're selling out or let's say making someone purchase a technology which you have, they become your customers, right? Whichever brand or organization is going to, let's say, use your tool or technology or product, they
Mm-hmm.
become your customers. So now what we have, a customer success manager is basically someone who's designated to few of these customers who have purchased your tools, and they have to in turn ensure that whatever client requirements or customer requirements are there, let's say, are managed, expectations are managed, stakeholders are managed, and in the end, from let's say their organization standpoint for which they are being, let's say, hired as a customer success manager, they have to ensure that they have a continuous stream of revenue coming in from those customers. Either they
Right.
maintain that revenue or they try to increase that revenue from the
Right.
existing customers. So, in a nutshell, that's what their core objective is. But on a day to day basis, it requires a lot of, I would say, interesting and challenging tasks in managing those individual customers and stakeholders, which is fun. Yeah.
Awesome. And so you said you've been in doing this for 7 years. Uh, when you started your career, did you imagine that this is what you wanted to do, or was it something that you sort of fell into and decided, okay, I'm just going to continue doing this?
Okay. I think most of the engineers will vouch for it nowadays. Is at that particular point of time, we just wanted a job, right? I
Yeah.
think for instance, realized pretty soon that I can't continue anymore in the core science field.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to look out for a job, earn money, right? And the first job which I had was like a placement offer, let's say on the campus itself. So it was something which didn't require me to specialize in any of the technical fields. Did require maybe some smartness around, let's say, handling day-to-day tasks. So from there onwards, let's say I could foray maybe 6 7 months down the line, foray into the customer success manager role, and that's where I realized maybe dealing with day-to-day nuances, talking to people, handling those aspects is something which I found interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I've since then continued in this field, and I'm still, let's say, liking it to an extent where I believe I can do the best compared to everything else in the market.
Amazing. You know, one thing I did not do, and I'm just realizing, is test our recording. And I've had mistakes before where, like, my mic didn't get recorded or the guest mic didn't get recorded.
Yeah.
I'm so scared. I don't want to break the flow of the podcast, but I have a
No,
feeling
no.
that I should stop recording and just check once.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. We'll
So
pick
I'm not
this.
sure if you noticed, but I'm using this
Thank you
lavalier
so
mic,
much for
right?
doing that. I noticed that immediately, and I noticed that your audio quality is very nice. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
doing that. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to stop recording. Picking back up. Thank you so much for bearing with the interruption. Um, my follow-up question on that then is, do you enjoy your job?
So I think with every sort of a job, it does, let's say, turn into a love-hate relationship, right? I think there are aspects which you hate, but there are aspects which you love, right? So I wouldn't go to the extent where I, let's say, become philosophical and say that, oh, okay, this was what I was born for, or this is what I was born to do, right? That's not the case, right? But I would, again, it comes to the fact that what's the best you can do with your skill sets, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is what I'm comfortable with. This is what which also challenges me along with being comfortable, right? So uh, I think, yeah, that's what I would say makes me happy to do this.
That's a good answer. Which is why I ask people about their side project as well, because sometimes
Yeah.
people are more excited about what they're doing on the side rather than. You mentioned that you love sports.
Yeah.
What sports are you watching?
I primarily follow football, basketball, and cricket. Right. But then I kind of keep on checking every now and then something other as well, like maybe American football, uh,
Oh, okay.
some maybe anything random which pops out on YouTube or something, right? But these are the three sports which I follow very regularly.
How much of a time investment is it to follow all three sports?
Oh, oh, in the peak season, it's too much road. So if I have to give you an instance, let's say if you have a day where you have all three ongoing, you'll probably have cricket during the daytime because that's how it is. You'll have football in the extreme nights, and then you'll have basketball in the extreme morning. Right. So your sleep schedule is probably screwed up if you want to be up to date or follow everything as and when it happens. Otherwise, you catch up on highlights and scores.
Yeah.
Right. But I've tried to maintain my sanity around it. I don't. I would like to have, let's say, more time on the hand to kind of make sure I'm up to date, keep in touch with everything. But yeah, I try to follow as much as possible then.
Amazing. You mentioned you have a blog. Do you have a sports blog or do you write about other things?
No, it's sports blog only, right? So I can maybe give you a brief, if it's not digressing too much, I can give you a brief of how this started, right? So
Yeah.
I'm sure you would have heard of the Last Dance documentary about Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, right? So
Yes,
this
yes.
came out back in COVID, right? And this was something very different. No one, even someone who watches sports frequently, hadn't seen something like this out there, let's say, in the world of documentaries, movies, anything, right? So it was very exciting, right? And then that was a time when you weren't meeting people regularly, right? You're usually catching up with them on the calls or on, let's say, video calls, Zoom, and all those things. So I watched it. I was kind of, let's say, too buzzed about it. I wanted to speak to someone about it, right? And then I realized that, okay, maybe the good part, or maybe the one thing which I can do is maybe write about it in terms of how I feel about that thing at that particular point of time. And then I did it, right? I just wrote a piece. I realized that, okay, what can be the platform where I release this? Because I just don't want to keep it to myself this time around. So I, let's say, made a quick small website on WordPress, simple, nothing fancy. Got a free domain, posted this, and yeah, that was the start.
Awesome.
Uh,
What's your blog, just for my knowledge?
yeah, so it's the sportstales.wordpress.com.
The Sports Tales, TALES,
Yeah,
the sportstales.wordpress.com.
yeah.
Very
You will
nice.
not see anything very recently there because, as I mentioned, I've been in and out of it, trying to find more time to do it, trying to, let's say, be less lazy around it. But yeah,
Trust me, I know, man. I have my own blog and it's, God, it's a pain. It's sometimes such a pain to have something to write about, right? Like,
yeah,
and when you have something to write about, also, it's like, is my opinion that relevant? Should I share it? And all the other imposter syndrome
yeah,
things. Okay, so between your blog and your work, right?
yeah,
If of course, like taking the money aspect of it aside from your work, if you
yeah.
could do your blog full time as a job instead, would you prefer to do that or would you prefer your actual job?
If I take the money aspect aside, then yeah, maybe. Why not? And I think, if I'm being honest, Actually, once when I was kind of regular into it, I tried, let's say, to see if I can get some like a employment opportunities through this, right? Maybe like a side hustle, not like a full time sort of thing, but a side hustle. Got a few interests, but then nothing kind of eventually turned out to be a success. So the idea was I continued writing, let's say, as a hobby. But then what I realized is that even before this, let's say for one of my friends, I used to do, let's say, help her out in terms of writing content pieces, right? Because she was a freelancer, and then she used to have a lot of such, let's say, technical writing, all of such blogs and such projects. So I thought maybe I'll give it a try, right? Maybe let me see if I'm any good at it. So I would say that's my first real experience with maybe writing content. And then eventually when I realized that, okay, if I can mix it with, let's say, something like sports, nothing better than that for, let's say, my personal liking.
Very nice.
So yeah, to I think coming back to the main question again, yes, why not?
Yes,
If it happens.
awesome. I mean, I would love to. I'll go through your blog and see like if there's something that we can do together. Because
Yeah.
I myself am like a full-time writer, right? So,
Okay.
so it's just looking for opportunities to work with people. I once interviewed. I forget the exact name, but I interviewed somebody who works with Pune FC.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they were like a like a PR manager or something like that. If I'm, this was like a few years ago. So, but if I look through, like every interview I have ever done, I have it published and everything. So I can look through and see if I. But do you follow Indian football or do you only follow like European football?
Mostly European, right? I would want to follow Indian football as much as I would want to, but it's mostly European. Again, I would sound a bit hypocritical when I say that, oh, it's nice, but then I don't watch it, right? So I would want to follow it as much as possible. I've been to, let's say, one ISL match so far. Let's say, want to be more frequent, but somehow not been able to so far. So I went to one of the ISL matches back in Mumbai. This was 3-4 years back now, but yeah, the experience is damn nice.
Yeah, I got a chance to go to two matches through that person, and it was Bangalore versus Kerala, and it was
Oh,
like fantastic. I went to Chinnaswamy Stadium, and so I also live in Bangalore. Sorry, I should have clarified that.
oh,
Yeah, so I went to Chinnaswamy Stadium, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, you get caught up in that stadium environment,
yeah,
and it's just that vibe is great. Like we're cheering for Bangalore FC, even though I had never heard of the team before, but along with everybody else, we're cheering for Bangalore FC, and it's
yeah.
just amazing fun.
So the one thing I think which I've been able to, let's say, take off in my checklist is all the three sports which I mentioned.
Yeah,
I've been able to watch at least one live match for all the three,
that's
and that too
very
in India.
nice. Okay.
So I watched ISL match in Mumbai. I went to Wankhede to watch India versus West Indies. And back in 2019, NBA organized two summer games. So they have this preseason games. They organized two summer games back to back. I think one was Saturday, the other was Sunday. Again in Mumbai. So I got hold of the tickets that time, went to watch the match. I enjoyed that experience as well. So at least I have like had like one match, witnessed one match for from every sport which I usually follow live. So yeah, that's altogether very different and a very nice experience.
Are you following the World Cup at the moment, Cricket World Cup?
Yeah, I think it just started.
Just started, yeah.
So yeah, so I am just as of now watched the highlights because I think only the first match was interesting. Let's see what happens tomorrow.
Let's see what happens. Tomorrow is England versus Australia. For those, I'm like, at the time of recording,
India
it
versus
is. Yeah.
Australia.
When somebody's listening to this, it'll be like weeks later.
Okay.
Uh, but so between all of this, like what you've told me, your work, your side project, your blog, your love for sports. The reason I do this show is because I used to like really have issues with work life balance, right? And this was my way of like asking people for advice about it. The premise essentially is that people are doing more than the bare minimum. The bare minimum for you, for example, would be to do your job, earn money, and that's good enough. But you're following things beyond that. You're doing things beyond that. Why do you think people do more than what is the bare minimum requirement at work or anywhere else?
Okay. Might not be expert opinion on this, but again, I'll just have let's say, my crack at it. So again, I think it comes from the fact that whatever primarily you do, if it doesn't, let's say, keep you happy around it, or maybe even if it does, I think it's more from the perspective of, if I can do something which I'm interested in,
Yeah.
or if your job is really interesting, then maybe learning more about it is where you are spending your extra time. So right, I think that's what drives people, let's say, to do more outside their primary sort of, let's say, work or income or job, right? So I think that's my thought process around it, right? I think I haven't come across people, let's say, those sort of folks where you would realize that, okay, what they do at the side is much bigger than what their primary kind of role is, right? So I think from my limited perspective or opinion, what I feel is, I think it's about learning or exploring more.
Okay. One more question is, when I ask for guests, so the way the show works is I interviewed my friends, and then friends of friends, and then friends of friends of
Yeah,
friends, and so on and so forth. So Palash is my friend as well as yours. He's the one who
yeah.
recommended you. The way I ask for recommendations, though, is interesting because I ask, who do you admire?
Hmm.
And I want to talk to that person. I want to talk to I want to talk to somebody who's admired by somebody else. Why do you think Palash admires you? What do you think he admires about you?
Oh, I don't know, dude. It should be the other way around, actually.
Tell me
I'll
more.
have to ask him if I'll have to basically. So I've known Palash since my college. He was my batchmate, right? So I've known Palash for 12 years now. So
Wow.
the
Okay.
idea is, if that's the case, I'm getting to know it for the first time. So maybe I'll have a separate chat with him. But not sure. I think that's a weird take, right? I want to be humble at the same time, but then again, you're asking me why someone advised me. Okay, I'll maybe take the fifth on this.
That is a American thing, but sure. But let me ask you the reverse then, because you mentioned it should be the other way around. What do you admire about
Yeah.
him?
Oh, Palash has been extremely kind and helpful, right? I think I admire about. So basically, back in college, I think he was the one who was very tech savvy amongst all of us, right? And I think there have been instances where you would go to Palash and he wouldn't hesitate to help you in any matter whatsoever, right? He's someone who's always soft spoken, right? Uh, who's always those that down to earth kind of a person, right? Who's diligent about his work. So when you reach this stage, as in where I am at this point in my life, I kind of really value these aspects, right? So when you look back at the last 12 years and how it is still currently, right? Even when we speak here and there, those traits still continue. You see people change more often than not during college or maybe post college, but he has always remained the same. So I think that is something which is something I admire about him.
Would you say you admire consistency?
Absolutely, I think you never strive for accuracy, I believe, because being consistent is much better. Even though you're far off from accurate, you'll reach there one day. So be consistent. I think nothing better than that. I definitely admire that about the folks. That's why, even though I mentioned I have that, I would not usually want to call it a side project, but I hate that about myself, that I couldn't be consistent in writing.
Well,
I want to, but I couldn't be.
maybe this meeting was, the right spur for you to be like, yeah, I should pick it up again.
Maybe, yeah.
So, two more questions to finish off our interview. I know
Yeah.
it's flown by. One is, I always ask for three pieces of advice. In your case, I would love to ask you for advice for students, especially engineering students, who are
Hmm.
just about to begin their career. In your seven
Hmm.
years, what are three essential pieces of advice you found into having a stable and sane career that doesn't take over your life?
I think for engineering students, let's say who are in college or about to leave college, who plan to join somewhere, again, I would not go to the extent that work hard, be focused, not to those aspects. But what I would, let's say, maybe ask them for is have a side project or know something or try to know something other than, let's say where you're going to work or what you're going to work on, right? Other than your academics. Uh, and that is something which I believe definitely helps in the long run. Because if you have those additional skills, right, that's what would separate you from someone else sitting across the room when you work, because you have those additional skills which he or she might not have.
Right.
Or if you look at the other person where you see that, okay, why is that person doing better than me, is because that person would have explored more back in the college when you could, when you have time to do that, when you have those resources. I think go ahead and do that. Explore, and that exploration can be anything. And that can be something like traveling, that can be any other hobby, that can be maybe a skill development, that can be building, let's say, a network, any such thing, right? But these things in longer run help.
Yeah. Amazing. So that's one. I need two more pieces of advice.
Okay. Two for college students is have fun. I think it's still, as in when you're 20 to 23-year-old, don't think too much about what's going to happen. Let's say start planning your pension retirement. Don't go into that sort of a mode. Have fun. You still have a lot many years to figure it out. So have fun. Don't be all, let's say, serious about life at that particular point of stage. Have fun. Travel as much as possible, have fun. You will realize that you eventually plan to do it later, but that later never comes, right? So do it as much as possible as early. I think that's primarily it. I'm still, let's say, I still have to follow on a lot of these advices myself. So uh, I think, yeah, that's my 2 cents, I would say.
Good enough. And for the last thing, this is something where you're speaking directly to the audience. Advertise something to the audience. Now, this can be your blog, it can be something that you sell. If not, it can be a book recommendation, a movie recommendation, a song recommendation, or any other, or a quote that you like. So, anything that you wanted to recommend directly to the audience, this is your stage to do it.
What do I advertise? Someone go read my blogs. I think, yeah, that I would say.
The sportstales.wordpress.com.
.wordpress.com. Yeah. If you find it interesting, let me know. I've been waiting for some sort of feedback in terms of what more can I do, what better can I do. Let me know. I might think about it the next time I write and then accordingly work on it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's linked in the description for anybody listening. Wherever you're listening, it should be there. And please go add a comment. We bloggers thirst for comments because we sometimes don't know if anybody's reading.
Yeah.
Right, more than liking, more than sharing, leave a comment, because then it tells us, yes, you read it, and you, whether you liked it or not, tell us that, so that then we can continue writing going forward.
Yeah, and maybe two more folks I can advertise is there's I have a flatmate here in Bangalore who is, let's say, who kind of makes music. He is a musician, so his name is Abhijit Pathak. Do check him out on Spotify, please, if you can.
Abhijit Pathak makes music on Spotify. Amazing. And that
Yeah,
link will
that
also
is
be in the
one.
description. And you had one more.
And one more, I have a college mate who kind of writes on Medium and all, Ankit Bhandari. So you can maybe check him out as well. I have appreciation for people. He does it consistently, more consistently than me. So I have appreciation for people who do that.
Say his
Even
name
though
one
I
more
might
time,
not.
please.
Ankit Bhandari.
Ankit Bhandari. Okay. I'm Bhandari.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. They're making a note so that I can follow up with you later and then take the links and then put it in the description, so on. Logistics.
Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome, Aditya. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. How was this experience for you?
Oh, this was damn nice. The same thing. I think the entire conversation flew by, right? And you said 25, 30, whatever minutes it was. I didn't realize, I think, how the time has went by. I didn't have to, like, stress too much about it as well, right? I think it was a very natural conversation, so I really enjoyed it. I think this is the first time I'm actually speaking to you as well.
Yeah, first time we are
In a
actually
way,
speaking. I
yeah,
love having my first conversation with somebody and recording it because,
yeah,
like people say, oh, it's hard to meet people or it's hard to start a conversation with somebody. It's really not. You just have to
yeah.
ask them about what they do and you are now, I think, the 130th person or something like that that I've interviewed. Not always in this format. This
Hmm.
the This series started as a blog series, and I did 100 episodes that way, and then 101 onwards it was a podcast.
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
the podcast format is fun, but now I'm like, okay, I want to take advantage of YouTube as well, and why not when the guests are there?
Hmm.
Like if somebody's spending time talking to me on a call, why not just record the
Hmm.
call?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm gonna go talk to Aditya a little bit more outside of recording. Thank you so much for listening. If you have so far, Aditya, can would you like to say bye to the audience?
Thank you, everyone who kind of joined in, who would be listening to this. Thank you so much. Great work, Vaibhav. Good consistency. I think keep checking up Vaibhav's work. Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.